I met my first guest right here in this space on December 18th, 2010. So 4 years ago. And this is what he told me when I first met him. Take a listen to this.
Tell us what happened on that day, October 13th, 1997.
Okay, well, at the time I was 21 years old and I was enrolled at the University of Montevallo in Alabama. And at that time I was home in Columbia, Tennessee from college. We were on fall break. And me and my mom were out shopping, hanging out, and we had stopped at this fast food joint, got some food, and went on home. And while we were sitting there at the table eating, the phone rang, and I got up and I answered it. And the lady on the other end asked for Mr. Timothy Hampton, Thunder Kellie. And I said, this is him. And she said, did you take, or did you try and give blood at the University of Montevallo during the Red Cross blood drive? And I told her that I did. And she said, well, I'm sorry to inform you, but your blood came back HIV positive. And I said, are you lying? And at the time I started laughing because I thought it was a really good friend of mine. So, yeah, and I was like, all right, well, yeah, whatever. And so she said, sir, I'm not playing. My name is whatever her name is, and I'm from the Columbia Health Department, and we're going to need you to come down as soon as possible. Well, my reply was, I'm not coming down there because Columbia, Tennessee is a small town, and anybody that show up at the health department, people would know within a 10-minute time. So I was like, no, I'm not coming down there. And so she hurried up and she kind of cut in and she told me that if I didn't come down there, that she would send the police out to pick me up by the end of the day.
Oh, whoa.
And so I just kind of sat there and I was like, well, I'll be there in a second. So I hung up the phone and I looked at my mother and she asked me who was on the phone, and I told her that it was the Columbia Health Department. And my mother's she has a cussing spirit, so she would have been puking into buckets also. So she told me, she said, well, what the hell did they want? And I told her that they said that I was HIV positive and I needed to come down. And so she looked at me as if I was lying, and she noticed that I wasn't. And she said, well, let's get the hell up out of here. And we got in the car and we drove down there, which it usually only takes like 10 minutes to get to the health department, but for me it seemed like it took like 3 days to get there because I felt like they were lying to me, that when I got there it was going to be a joke, or I don't know what I was thinking. But this supposedly infinite God, if you really healed people, then, or if you were a real God, then, you know, why am I going through this right now? So anyway, we got to the health department and I walked up to the counter and it was this big robust lady with this sandwich in her mouth, and she said, may I help you? And I told her that this lady had just called me and told me that I was HIV positive. And so she just kind of stared at me for a second and said, hold on. And she took another bite of her sandwich and she got up and she walked to the back and she grabbed some lady, and the lady came to the front and told me to come to the back. And they took me to the back into the doctor's office. And me and my mother sat there quietly, didn't really say anything. The doctor walked in, and I think that's when it kind of hit me. And I messed up because he was a black man and he looked just like me. He was 6'3". And so I said, wow, I've hurt my human race. I've hurt black people. Another person did, because HIV/AIDS in my mind at that time equaled death. So that's all I could think about was that whole death thing. And so he came in and he just talked to us, asked about the weather and different things like it, trying to make light. And I guess I was anxious, and I asked him, did I have AIDS? And he said, well, he didn't know whether I had AIDS, but my test did come back HIV positive. And so I asked him, what did he need me to do? And he told me that I needed to go to the Columbia Health Department because that's where they specialize. Well, not Columbia Health Department, it was called the Columbia Life Center. And what they did, they specialized in HIV and AIDS on certain days. So like on Thursdays, all people who are HIV positive go to this clinic. And I told him that I wasn't going to go there, and I would rather die than to go there, because my thing is I just didn't want people
to be called out. Right.
No,
right,
come on
your
now.
personal business.
You put them all there on a Thursday. You put them all there on one particular day. It's like the people with lepers, put them on an island or put them in a particular place.
Right.
So I just didn't want to be that person. But anyway, life changed, and my mother, we left the doctor's office. We went to the house, and the doctor told me to basically make the appointment. So me and my mother went back to the house. Just to kind of make a long story short, we talked for a second, and she asked me who was I going to tell, and I told her that I was going to tell everybody, because people that I knew that had died before I was diagnosed, the funerals were they died of cancer or they died of something else, but it was never HIV or AIDS, and I did not want to die alive. So I knew that I had to tell my family, and I knew that I needed to tell everybody what I was about to die from. And that was 12 years ago. So.
Thunder Kellie, welcome to the program this morning.
Hey, sir. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. I can hear in your voice. That takes you back, right? Takes you back.
Yeah, like you got some stuff. And that was like a month before my mother passed. So it took me to many different places, just hearing my voice and how life has changed from 2010 until 2015 now. So, wow.
We're going to talk about all of that because actually, man, I have been blessed to document a lot of your life because right after your mother passed, you came back and we talked about that, book, chapter, and verse. And you've been on the program. I was counting up here. Do you know how many times you've been on?
No, how many times?
I'm going to tell you now. So that clip that I just played for you that was your first time. That was December 18th, 2010. You came back on January 1st, 2011. That was your second time. Your third time was January 22nd, 2011, literally a week or so after your mom passed. You came back. That was your third appearance. Yep. You came back again on February 12th, 2011. That was your fourth time. Your fifth time was October 1st, 2011, and we talked about why am I so hard on myself. You came back for the sixth time on November 26th, 2011, and we talked about church hurt. That was a big one. That was a big one. You came back again for the seventh time on February 4th, 2012. We talked about living sexually responsible. And then the last time I talked to you was the eighth time we got together. That was on June 20th, 2012. So it's been 2.5 years since we've had a conversation. Wow. And today is your ninth time being here. So the last time I talked to you on June 20th, you had just left your teaching position and you were going full steam ahead.
I did.
Yep, into your photography. We're going to talk about all of that, but I want to start actually by getting your reaction to what you just heard. And then I want to talk about something that you did just a few days ago at Tennessee State University with the Black Gay Lives Matter. I want to talk about what you talked about then, but let's just start it off by your reaction to hearing the unfolding of your story from October 13th, 1997, which is the day that you were diagnosed as HIV positive. Just give us an update on your journey since that day, October 13th, 1997.
Wow. Well, so much has happened. I think I've matured a lot. I've grown spiritually, like beyond leaps and bounds. I think the knowledge is so much greater. I seek more. So, yes, so much has changed as far as HIV, my view towards it. It has given me strength to be positive. I've learned that life is positive. I remember going back and hearing that clip and thinking about that day. I said, talking to God, I said, if you are real, then you should heal, or you should be able to heal. And so I remember I'm thinking about that moment at time where I started questioning God. It's a verse that says, all things work together for my good. And I just don't ever want to be a judge and put on a robe and think that something is happening in my life, oh, that's bad, that's good. Because if it works for my good, it is my good. It's for my good. So I thank God for HIV. I thank God for the journey that I went through with my mother because, my mother died and I came back a week later to speak about it. And then church heard how I ended up being hurt by a religious organization, and to say, hey, I forgive you, and God made a way for me to go back and be healed because I was still broken from that. So to look at my life now and you tapping into a part of me make me say, wow, God, I have really matured, and look at me now. In that amount of time, I've grown. Oh, God, what are you about to do in my life, in this next season? So, yeah, wow, Robert, thank you so much. You are great to my life. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you're part of my life, too. And when I think about where we were as a society in 1997, at that time, an HIV diagnosis really felt like they were just scooping the dirt out and about to put you down in the dirt and just scoop the dirt back over you. It really felt like death. But I read the other day where HIV has gone from a terminal illness to a chronic illness. Do you agree with that? And is that your perception of living with HIV now? It's like diabetes. You can manage it. Is that true for you?
Yes, I'll live with the statement, you can manage it. However, because of stigma, you will die. So I still wanted to be able to say you can live, but I wanted to put it in the context of it's still dangerous. Because I don't want it to be a double-edged sword. Okay, yeah, I don't want you to get it, but if you get it, it's okay. Yeah, it's manageable. You can live a healthy life, and even now, becoming undetectable is the new prevention, yet that doesn't mean that you shouldn't wear condoms, but you also have PrEP pills. So it's so wonderful, the technology and where we've come from 97 to 2015, but there are still people who are choosing to die, and I say choosing to die is because they have this stigma about this disease.
Now, what are PrEP pills?
PrEP pills, it's called Truvada. That is the PrEP pill in which they use. If I'm HIV positive, this is a scenario. If I'm HIV positive and someone that I am dating is negative, he can use PrEP pills in order to vaccinate, I'm going to use that word loosely, from HIV. So anyone, or I'm going to put it out here, any gay man or any woman or anyone who's having sex who would like to use a prevention method, then talk to your doctor about Truvada, because it's a great pill to use if you're dating someone who's HIV positive, or if you're in a risky sexual behavior. Use a PrEP pill so that you won't get HIV and won't transmit HIV also.
Okay, I've never heard of that. So let's dig into that for a little bit. So PrEP, P-R-E-P, like preparation, right? So you and I are dating, and you have HIV and I don't. And I take the PrEP pill, and what does that mean? That we can have sex without having a condom, or what exactly is that pill going to do for me in my sexual relationship with you?
Okay, it can prevent you from getting HIV from someone if you choose not to wear a condom. I want to use all of this loosely.
Okay.
And I don't want to make it, I want people to Google, and really speak with your doctor. But for me, I just go with what I know. So let's say, for instance, but another issue with that is a person has to be on a med regimen, and they need to be undetectable. So the transmission of the virus is very, very low. So when you have someone who's undetectable, HIV positive, and you have someone who's HIV negative on the PrEP pill, the likelihood of them transmitting HIV to each other or to anyone else is very slim to none. So again, there are many different scientific studies out there, but PrEP, P-R-E-P, that's more for people who are in a relationship or in sexual behavior. Now, there's also PEP, P-E-P, and it's more for if someone is in a sexual behavior or in a risky behavior, such as cell trafficking or sex or selling sex or get raped or something like that, and they believe that the person is HIV positive, then you can go to the emergency room, and the window period is, I believe, 72 hours, and you are they'll give you a vaccine or some pills in order to take to help you prevent getting HIV.
Okay, that's kind of like the morning after pill for women, if they've been raped or something. Okay, I think they might be. Okay, yeah, that PrEP, I've never heard of the PrEP pill. I think that's quite fascinating and tricky to market that because, like you said, you don't want to advocate, well, just condoms off, everybody, let's just fuck. That's not really what that pill is for. It sounds like it's more for just what you said. If we're in a relationship, we're committed, we're monogamous, and you have the virus and I don't, that we can still enjoy a somewhat enjoyable and flexible sexual relationship and limit the risk that you would actually transmit the disease to me. That's what that pill. Okay, I got it. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, because there are other STDs if you don't use a condom.
Right.
And I want to always remember that syphilis is high in the African-American male community. So I don't want you to think that just, hey, this HIV, let's go do it free. No. we still have syphilis, we still have herpes, we still have other STDs that you can't catch if you do not wear a condom.
I have been, I don't know if you know this or not, because I don't think we've really talked about it, but I've been abstinent for like 4.5 years now. But I have whatever.
And how was that, Robert?
I'll tell you.
Come on, let's be real now. Let's help some people. I need help too.
Abstinence is, for me, this is not for everybody, but for me, because I was so promiscuous in my life, that abstinence is what I needed to just rediscover myself and learn how to love myself and not just give myself away, which is what I was doing.
Amen.
You know what I mean? So it's worked for me. In 4.5 years, I have been completely abstinent. Yes, I still masturbate sometimes. I still release my juices sometimes. But in general, I can go for long periods of time without masturbation, without releasing my semen. It's a whole spiritual practice that I'm involved in called brahmacharya. And we can talk about that another time. But I raise the abstinence because in the absence of having sex, I can look back now with some clarity on all of the sexual activity that I've had in my life, and I can see it through different eyes. And it shocks me, man, when I run a list in my head and run scenarios in my head of some of the behaviors that I was involved in, and I think back on some of the things that I've done, and I see how lost I was and how, like many men, this is why I raise it, many men are looking for intimacy through sex. And what we really want is intimacy, but what we're doing to get it is just fucking. And sometimes you ain't asking your partner's name. Sometimes you don't even care. You don't even want to know. You just want meat and flesh up against one another. And so, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm just raising that because when you talk about there are lots of other diseases out there, there are. I have to be delicate about how I talk about this. But if you look at it, I've been in situations where I can look out and see multiple people having sex at one time. So that some people will call that an orgy. I'm being very candid here. But I've been in situations where there have been a whole lot of people on the scene having sex at one time. And when I look, you can look out into that environment and you can see, okay, you can see who didn't have a father. You can see who didn't have a mother. You can see who's working their stuff out through the sexual acts that they're allowing themselves to participate in at the time without any regard to any of the consequences. But in that moment, you just want those sexual, emotional needs met. So I raise that to ask you a question. When you look out into the sphere of influence that you have and the circles that you run in and the people that you see and the friends that you have, do you see people who are having sex, fucking, but really craving intimacy that the sex never, ever really brings them?
Yes. When I even ask you about the whole abstinence, because everyone wants to be able to say no to sex, but it runs us so much. It's everywhere we turn. And because we as gay men have been hurt so badly and made us feel as if sex is a bad thing, now we have to sneak and do it, and we do it under tables, and it runs us. It's part of us. And when you made the point of like the father, or you see someone who doesn't have a father, it smacked me because I know for me personally, I love older men because my father was abusive. My father was this. Sometimes I like rough sex. Whenever you say those things, don't ever feel as if, no, it's just for me. It is for the world because you may be the only Christ or the only thing that people see in order to be better. So, yeah, child, people are using it and killing us. And, oh, God, like even the whole raw thing. You talked about orgies. Now the sex parties. It's even to the point where, hey, if you're on the same meds and I'm on the same meds, hey, we don't have to wear condoms. Now their brains are crazy with the whole HIV deal.
Yeah, sex is the most powerful drive on the planet. It really is. It's a powerful drive. Yeah, and it becomes even more clear to you how powerful it is whenever you say to yourself and live it out like I'm attempting to do, of saying, I'm going to step aside from that for a minute. I'm going to let that go for a minute and try to master that. And live above the pull and the influence of that. It's very hard. It's to the point now, no pun intended when I said it's very hard, but it's to the point now where I have to be really careful just what I look at. I could just be on the internet researching a topic for this show, and all of a sudden I got some titties or a dick or some ass in my face, and I'm like, well, damn, I ain't even click on nothing to bring that up, but it's just there. Right. It's everywhere. So it's a very powerful drive.
Jill Scott said sex can, well, she didn't really say sex, but I'm going to use sex. But she said it can be a problem or it could be a solution, depending on how you want to use it. The sex can be a problem or a solution, and we just tend to throw it away and use it as give all power away to it. Here, you can have it, however you want to do it. What if I'm having a bad day, sex? If I'm having a good day, sex. If I don't feel good, sex. It's always sex. It ends with sex.
I think you're absolutely right. And it takes me back to something that the last show we did 2 weeks ago was called What Are You Afraid Of? Now, this is directly related to sex. We weren't talking about sex, but I asked the question, what are you afraid of, in the show that we did 2 weeks ago. But also 4 years ago, or not 4 years ago, but 2.5 years ago, the last time I talked to you, I asked you the question, what are you most afraid of? And I want to play for you what you said and tie that in to our conversation about sex. Take a listen to this.
You mentioned earlier that you're sometimes scared, intimidated, and fearful. What are you most afraid of?
Being by myself, I think. And I don't mind being alone. I don't mind being by myself. I think it is just, no one being there, able to trust. And maybe those are some of my own personal issues. I have trust issues. So I guess that's what I'm scared of. Just no one being there. I mean, because everyone is there when the lights are on, and it's a lot of people who love me, follow me, and say great things and pray for me. But I guess to really have someone who's really there, who knows me, and I have some families like that. But I guess to be by myself, that's the one thing I'm fearful of.
And to me, I think that's the reason why most people are having sex. Not only because it feels good, but because they just don't want to be alone, Thunder.
Right. I get it. Like, me and I got two best friends, and I'm going to string them out. Falcon and Michael Jackson. His real name is Michael Jackson. So, but Falcon, Phalcon, and Michael Jackson, again, his real name is Michael Jackson. So, But Michael Jackson, we had a discussion a couple of days ago, and we were just talking about being alone. And I know I used to do a lot of posting or sayings about being single. But I think finding two friends who I could really have intimate moments with, not sex, intimacy,
right,
friendship,
right,
spending time, building memories. I think that was what I needed when I go back and reflect on saying, being by myself. I think at that point in time, I really wanted friends, and not a friend who want to be your friend and then say, "Oh, I want some of you," or "What can I get out of you?" I needed genuine friends who I could trust with my life, my dreams, my soul, my spirit, everything about me. I can actually trust them, and I think finding those friends and those who could actually be true to me and tell me, "Listen, I don't like this. Do this. This may be wrong," and me be able to accept it. That's what I needed. I needed that, and I think that has completed me as far as, like, relationship-wise now. I still ain't got no man, but that's okay, and I'm fine with that, So.
Right. I think what you speak on, Thunder, is true for men in general, straight and gay, because what you just spoke about was not only intimacy, but affection. And you and your friends, I think they're right there with you at the kitchen table now, right?
No, I put them downstairs.
Oh, you put them downstairs. Okay. I understand. But what it sounds like you have with them is affection. Now, this is a tender topic for a lot of men, because straight, gay, I think it applies to both. When most men get together, let's take straight dudes for an example. Most straight dudes get together, okay, and they are playing sports. Just men in general, playing sports. You and your friends may get together and do whatever you all do together. I don't know what that is. But whatever it is that you do together, you do it together, and it's an intimate act for you all. It could be shopping. It could be sitting around the kitchen table making breakfast. Whatever it is, there's a level of intimacy involved. The intimacy that straight dudes get, all that slapping on the ass in the locker room and on the field, that is a way of having intimacy with each other. Affection with each other. Because a lot of these dudes out here, straight and gay, I think this is true for both, but you tell me what you think. I think, and particularly the ones who have not had close relationships with their father or who have had abusive relationships with their father, men in our society, and this is not true for African societies, because I've been in certain African countries where, and even Middle Eastern countries where you will see the brothers in Israel, the brothers walk down the street holding hands. In certain African countries, I'm thinking of Somalia and Ethiopia, the brothers walk down the street and they link their pinkies together and walk together. Well, that's the first thing they're told not to do when they come here, because people will call them out as being a homosexual. So we have not taught boys and men how to be affectionate and intimate with one another without being sexual.
But that goes on, and that's so true, but it goes against the American culture, because the American culture is, to be a man, you must this. Even in your dialogue with me, you said men will go to the locker room, to watch sports, play sports, and then when you made the analogy of me and my friends, you said, we cook breakfast, sit at the table, go shopping. So it's always, in order to be a man, you have to act a particular way. But shit, we'll watch sports too. We'll do whatever we want to do. We just don't want to put it under an umbrella. In order to do this, you have to be this. So I think for straight men, they have to be in a box. You have to act like this. You can't do this. And then for even gay men, we can't even compliment each other. We can't even say certain things to each other because now you're trying to come up on me. So we always put ourselves in these little boxes or clusters or whatever to say, no, you can't love a person or be friends with another person without someone thinking sex. Because me and Falcon had to fight that for many years being friends. We were just really close. And us doing video blogs, it was just like people kept saying, that's your boyfriend, y'all are together. No, we're just really good friends. And we discuss the intimacy between us. These are our guidelines. We don't do this or that. We're really good friends. And I think that for many people, it's the communication. Communicate what is a friend to you. What's your language of love? How do you want to be, considered a friend? Because of American culture, we put it in a box and say, no, you can't. Because if you do this, you're going to be this.
I think that's a really good point. Your point is well taken when I said that straight brothers play sports and maybe you and your friends go shopping. I didn't mean it like that, but I definitely can understand why.
No, I know you did.
Why you heard it like that. Yeah, but I agree with you. For example, women, you can see them in the shopping malls or wherever, and they will hug each other and walk arm in arm and kiss each other. Nobody thinks anything. Nobody thinks anything about that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying, I'm advocating for a bunch of brothers to be walking around hugging and kissing each other, walking arm in arm. I don't know that that's something that everybody would want to see either. I don't know. I don't think that brothers would tend to do that with one another. But let's just say that there is a brother in your life who's like a brother to you. I have very intense, intimate, affectionate relationships with men that I'm not sleeping with. I'm just going to keep it real with you. I mean, I'm not sleeping with them, but if I want to hug you or if I want to, I don't kiss a lot of dudes, but, I might kiss you on the cheek or the forehead, just show affection toward you. I would like to feel free within myself to do that. And when I do it, I can see the eyebrows going up. People are like, what is that about?
Right.
I remember going to a restaurant, man. It was for one of my relatives had a birthday. And we went to this restaurant. There was a lot of us. And for some reason, the waiter kept touching me, just like touching my shoulder or touching my arm when he was talking to me. Mm-hmm. And my father did not like that. He kept saying, why does he keep touching you? And I said, well, why don't you ask him? So some men are just uncomfortable seeing other men be affectionate with one another. And I don't think I don't think that's a gay thing. I think that's because, particularly in the case of my father, who didn't have a father, he's a fatherless son. So he never knew how to sit on the knee of a man and be rocked and cradled by a man that he wasn't sexually attracted to or would never have sex with. He never learned that. And most men never learn that. We never learn that. We never learn it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
People will hold their daughters, man, their little girls, until they are well into their teens. But they stop being affectionate with their little boys very early on. Most men, very early on. So I think that's a large conversation. When last summer I was in Ferguson, whenever a lot of that stuff was popping off, and that's the first thing that I thought of when I saw your picture on Facebook the other day, giving a speech at Tennessee State University about Black Gay Lives Matter. Was that your topic? Did you select that topic, or was that the topic of the conference that you went to?
No, actually, I was asked to be on a panel of individuals, and it was actually called Black Lives Matter. And so for me, I do the whole LHIV.org and Living with HIV, work a lot with the LGBT community here in my area, Nashville, Tennessee, and I do these group discussions. I needed to express to people that Black gay lives matter. And the same way we take Black Lives Matter and we use it as the injustice of policemen and police brutality, we also have to look at how we take our Black gay people and we disservice them, and we and there's so much injustice for them, as well as a silent epidemic is killing us, such as HIV. It is really spreading amongst not only just gay people, but Black people. But I really wanted to focus on the MSM community in the South. So I contracted HIV in college, and since I was on that campus, they gave me the opportunity to speak. I think gave me like 15 minutes, and that's what I wanted to target in on. So yeah, that's what I spoke about. I spoke about, yes, Black lives do matter as far as coming to social injustice and all of that, Ferguson and so on and so forth. I can't breathe. But what about the MSM community? Let's not forget we have some other issues that we really have to face. And so that was my angle, and it was well received. I was asked to come back and speak to some Muslim brothers. So, yeah.
Did you say MSM community? Is that what you said?
MSM, men having sex with men.
Men having sex. Okay, all right. It's so many things now. I'm no same gender loving SGL. I never heard of the MSM, but it's so many. And now it's LBGTQI questioning. And what is that? What does the I stand for? What is the I for?
I don't know. I do not know. I've never met an I in my life.
Okay, yeah. Inquisitive. I was like, well, what is the I? I get lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, and I still need to research the I. I'm not quite sure what that means. Black lives matter, and yes, Black gay lives do matter. To somebody hearing that for the first time, which was my first time hearing that when I saw your picture that you posted on Facebook, Black gay lives matter. For somebody hearing that and not understanding that, like Black lives matter, yeah, we as brothers, we get profiled in our cars and walking around shopping malls and things like that, going into stores. Why would you say Black gay lives matter? To somebody who wouldn't get that, what does that mean, that Black gay lives matter?
I can only speak from experience with myself as far as being a Black gay man or same gender loving. I speak of the first thing when we haven't spoke about me leaving church, but many gay people are ostracized from religious organizations, sometimes from jobs because they can't be who they are, and even from families. So that's where I speak from as far as Black gay lives do matter. The experience that I had in church, it literally gut me, but now I'm in an organization that affirms me, and they really care about who I am, and the pastor fights for me, literally, and there has been instances where I haven't had to change who I was in order to be a part of an organization. I was able to be a same-gender loving guy who could bring my partner to church if I had one. So I think right there, Black gay lives do matter. I also think that Black gay lives matter when we, even in our own community, sometimes we as gay people don't believe that we matter. So that's the reason why we continue to be addicts as far as drugs, as far as sex, as far as any other type of issue, or sometimes we just lose our focus because we don't feel as if we matter. So it's also encouraging to know that my life matter, and if this guy says it who has some type of platform, then maybe I could say it to someone else. And even for young kids community, they need to look and see that my life matter. I'm not the devil. I'm not possessed. I'm not a bad person. I'm gay and I love myself. So that's what I mean. I'm not trying to take it from my Black people, but I just do want to focus that Black gay lives do matter.
When you think about, now I got a good decade on you. I'm 48. I'll be 49 in April.
I am 38 and I will be 39 in March.
Okay, so I got a good decade on you. When I think about what my life was like at 16 and the state of the consciousness, the mainstream consciousness about homosexuality when I was 16, and you think about it, what people were thinking and believing about gay people when you were 16. When you look at a 16-year-old today, and the world that they're growing up in, do you feel like there's been a huge shift in attitudes that people have about being gay?
I can say it's the same as having a black president. Oh, God, yes. Thank you, God. We've come far, but how far have we really come when we look at it? Because 10 years ago, you didn't have guys who wore makeup at a young age or who were, quote, unquote, I'm going to give another word for you, cunt. And cunt means guys who put on lipstick and, and they still have a beard. You didn't have that, and now it's younger, and then you have these young guys who are majorettes. So gay is now becoming a whole spectrum of people. So I say, yeah, we've come far. Yes, it's in our face now. We can accept some things, but we have to be accepting on all levels with gay people. And even in our own community, we sometimes shun those who do wear makeup, and we gravitate to those who are muscular or built or whatever. So, yeah, I think we've come a long way, Robert, yeah, but I think that we still have a way to tread, because if not, then those straight-looking boys who are 16, they don't want to be gay because they don't like to be associated with the guys who wear makeup. Just like some black people don't want to be associated with, ratchet people. So.
Yeah, I think that's well spoken. I mean, I heard the term, I think it was in that series Noah's Ark, effemophobia. And those are the guys in the gay community who have a fear and a phobia of the more effeminate guys, where a lot of the guys in the gay community are just completely obsessed with the more hip-hop identified thuggish type of guy. So I hear what you're saying. There are schisms even within the various cultures and communities of gay people. I totally get that. In general, though, I have to say, and this is from where I sit, I think a lot has changed. I mean, the Supreme Court is getting ready to take up marriage equality. If they're going to take it up, it's probably going to pass. It may even become the law of the land that same-sex couples can get married. That is huge. In America, that is huge. I think the last cloak to be, or one of the last cloaks or veils or shackles is probably the best words to be lifted, is the religious shackle. Because the hardcore Christian black people are going to go to their graves condemning gay folks, and a whole lot of them, particularly women, are married to gay folks. They just might not know it, but they are. So that religious thing, I think, is the hardest. It's the source of a lot of stigma and a lot of condemnation, I believe, from what my experience has been. And that's a hard one for a lot of people to shake. I always tell the brothers and sisters, if you in church and you gay, you got to really be conscious and wake up, because sitting in church, at a mainstream church, if you're gay, is going to make you hate yourself. And there are enough things in society that are going to make you hate yourself. You don't need to be sitting there and having that teaching going into you like that to make you hate yourself. There are some enlightened and compassionate preachers out there. I don't know a lot of them because I don't go to church. So people probably just will not hear anything I say on that because I don't attend church. But I certainly sat in it long enough to know that you can, if you allow it, you can allow some of those sermons to cause and to perpetuate self-hatred in you, which when you become an adult will make you do, what did OJ say? Make you do things, bad things. It just is true. It just is true.
Do things.
Bad things with it. Okay. Exactly. Just speaking to the whole self-hatred of sitting in church. Now, you came here and talked about how you had an experience at church and you decided to leave. And that was November 26, 2011. What has that journey been? I heard you just say that you found a congregation and a community that you now appreciate and that appreciates you. What has that journey been for you, leaving that one church and finding this new place to worship and praise?
Okay, I have to give like a little bit of everything. So I met Falcon, who was a really, really great friend. I met him because he needed a photo shoot of him and his then boyfriend. And so I did a photo shoot, and we became really good friends after that, like instantaneously we became friends. So at the time, it had been like almost 3 years I hadn't been to an organized religion or even spoke out. I was like, no more organized religion. We would spend our Sundays kicking it. And the guy who was the musical director at the old church that I attended, he gave me a call. And he said, hey, man, what are you doing? I would like for you to do some praise and worship for me. And I was like, at the old church that I used to go to? And he was like, no, it's at a new church called Greater Grace Temple Community Church. And I was like, well, why are you using me? And he said they needed someone uplifting because the first lady of the church had breast cancer, and they wanted someone who spoke out in the community, uplifting and, can make people happy or live, and that was my whole campaign, live. No matter what's going on, you can live. So I ended up going to a rehearsal and doing worship there. She had just had a baby, and I'll tell you a little story about them. His name is Brianna Mitchell, and his wife was Lady Lakeisha Mitchell. And she had found out she was pregnant the same day she found out she had breast cancer. And she was given the option of, you either abort the baby and treat this aggressive breast cancer, or you have the baby and risk losing your life. She had the baby, and then she went for an aggressive treatment of breast cancer. So at that time, in my mind, I was like, well, God, thank you for bringing me back. And the pastor was it's a very gay church. So it was right at home. It was my people. And at Greater Grace, they let you be who you are, and they don't condemn you. So it felt good to be in the place and to feel like I was needed and using my gifts. So that was really, really good being in the church. But the aggressive treatment didn't work. And the baby turned 1, and probably like 2 or 3 months later or a month later, she died. And it really rocked the church. And for me, Robert, I thought that I had gotten past my mother's death. But when I saw she has 2 other boys, she ended up having a boy who was one, and then another kid who's like 10 or 12, in between that age range. And when I saw those 2 boys without their mother, it brought back memories of me feeling like a little boy without his mother. So we all went through a healing process in the church, and I'm thinking God was sending me there to uplift, but he was actually sending me there, I believe, to get healed. Out of me going to church and being the worship leader at Greater Grace, many LGBT people are able to come to church and not be condemned. My friend Falcon, who I spoke about, he was a Jehovah's Witness. Now he goes to church and enjoys the atmosphere and the love that they actually give. Have there been people who have said something? Yes, I know that sometimes I could be a lot for church people, quote unquote church people. You know how they are.
Right.
But as far as the pastor dealt with them and sent them on their way. So when I say he has literally fought for me, he has fought for me, and the people love it. So I love where I am. I'll never get so wrapped up in religion to where I forget about the spiritual aspect of my journey. So I think that's what happened in my past, and the church hurt that I dealt with, that I was so wrapped up in the organization and the religion that I forgot about my spiritual journey that I needed to take. And that spiritual journey needed to happen with the 3 years out of religion, the going back and the gay people and going into a place where gay people needed love. That's the reason why I say gay lives matter, because when they see me, they say, ooh, it really matters. I have group discussions, and there's over 50 people in my house every 4th Friday. So
yeah, so let's just make a point here, just to tie into what I was saying earlier. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's not like you go to a quote unquote gay church. It's that you go to a church that is compassionate and that is inclusive.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Got you.
Yes.
Got you.
They're very inclusive. Now, the difference between them, inclusive and affirming, as far as affirming, I see it as you get married in the church, so on and so forth. But as far as inclusive, there are people who serve in the ministry who are openly gay, and there's nothing, no, you can't serve, or you can't be this, or you can't be that if you're homosexual. It's not that type of church, not that type of atmosphere.
Got you. So the last time you were here, as I said earlier, you had just walked away from your teaching profession to go full out for your photography. What has that journey been in the last 2.5 years?
I went back to teaching because I needed money in order to complete the vision that I felt for myself. I love photography. It's amazing. I still do photography, but photography is now a business, events, photo shoots, things like that. I make my money that way. I also teach again, and it's at the same school, but my position has changed. I am now the program associate, where I just pretty much take care of the program. I deal with every child on every level as far as special education. I think what I ended up doing is taking LHIV and renaming it or rebranding it, because at first it was just T-shirt, and now it's an organization. So LHIV, it being a campaign to encourage other people to live with HIV physically, spiritually, and mentally. I think that's where my life was kind of headed, and it started off with videos, and then it became people who wanted to contribute and help, and then it became getting a manager, completing a book. I have to complete this book about my life. So the journey changed. Again, you start off with something, and you have to be willing and open to what the universe has for you and what you even call out. So I know that I wanted the whole LHIV campaign to be global. I wanted to be a humanitarian for HIV, and that's what my legacy is going to be.
I appreciate that. I respect that. We have similar journeys in that we both left or walked away from or turned a page on a career position. And so take me back to the day that you decided, I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to re-enter that profession and use that money to fuel these other passions that I have. Did you feel like you failed? Did you feel like you were going backward? Just take us back to the day that you made that decision, or it became clear to you that I'm going to resume my teaching career and use the money to fuel my passions.
I don't mind doing over. I don't mind seeing a mistake and saying, okay, well, maybe I need to do it this way because I am so spontaneous. I think for me it was feeling needed. When I went back, they felt like, oh, we need you back. And when you feel needed, you'll do anything. So for me, I felt needed, and going back and having the position fit my need was like, okay, God, I'm supposed to be here, and these people need me. And sometimes places you're needed, you don't want to be there. But I was told you don't have to dig it to do it. You just got to get it done. So that's just where I was, and I am even now. I don't have to dig a lot of the paperwork that I have to do, whether it be for school, whether it be for LHIV. I mean, I'm so swamped by speaking things and going places, but I don't have to dig it to do it. I just have to get it done, because it's not always about me. It's about the people who see me. So my mother told me, said, you can go into the world and you don't see anyone, but that doesn't mean no one sees you. So you have to be accountable. That's what made me go back. I felt needed. I felt wanted. I felt it was okay to change plans. It's all right, you know. It's okay to fail, or not even. And for me, it wasn't even failure. I don't even consider it to be failure. I consider it to sometimes things change, and you have to change with things. Mm-hmm. So go on.
I love that phrase. You don't have to dig it to do it. That's a quotable right there. I'm writing that down, because that's going to help on the journey. You don't have to dig it to do it. Let me ask you about something I've been thinking about, just looking out into the world in this celebrity obsessed society that we live in, where everybody wants to be seen and everybody wants to be a star. And, you know, we just live in a world where people just